On a summer's evening in Athens, 2,500 years ago, philosophers were asking, what is a man? A very difficult question. They talked around it for hours until Plato said, a man is a featherless biped. Everyone was happy until the next day when Diogenes turned up in the symposium with a dead, plucked chicken and threw it at Plato and said, behold, a man. And everyone laughed, because that was clearly not a man. The answer had so many reasons for being wrong. However, if you ask me, what is National Treasure's interviews, I would say this video that you are watching, and no one could argue. Welcome to National Treasure's interviews. Thoughts, Laura?
I loved it. I didn't know where you were going, and I thought, like, we're not interviewing a man today.
We're not.
Is this just you introducing you, and then we'll go on to me? But I loved it. It felt like you started really intensely and then you got bored and cut straight to what this is, and I loved it.
I would say I did start intensely. I don't think I got bored. I think I reached the end of my fable and just bam, straight to the end. No fucking about. No second act. Set up, punchline. Hello. How are you today, mate?
You feel giddily full of summer. You're in a good mood.
Yeah, it's mainly because I've got sunburn on my head. I mean, I'm full of summer.
It doesn't look too bad in this light. This is a favourable light for you. I've got a bit of peely going on.
Is that sunburn or
yeah,
scabies?
I tried to do that thing, where you moisturize it, but you're really just gluing down bits of skin that have already peeled off, and you're just like pasting them back on with a moisturizer.
You've seen my feet, yes. So good. We have a lovely interview today.
We have. I'm very excited. So we've interviewed one of your friends before, and we've interviewed a joint friend or two, but this friend is my friend. And I think she will be your friend within a year, because you are famously moving to Brighton.
Yes.
So that we can be reunited. But we're interviewing my... That's two friends being reunited. We're interviewing Charlotte from Primp My Costume today. What is Primp My Costume, I hear you say? Well, folks, if you saw me roasting my husband on Roast Battle, you might have thought to yourself, she's wearing a sexy dress. And you'd have been right, I was. And that dress was made sexier by this very woman that we're going to be interviewing today. If you saw me on Mock the Week of just listening to TV shows, I'm having such a good time, you might have looked at my shoes and thought they're bloody nice shoes, and you'd have been right. And those shoes were primped by this lady. Primp My Costume is a hang on, Will, you want to say something?
If you saw me on BBC Three's Funs and Games, you are one of 8 people who saw me on BBC Three's Funs and Games.
And it might have been 12 people had you had your costume primped by Charlotte from Primp My Costume. Oh, yeah. She's here to tell us today all about a very special place in her heart. So let's welcome to our screens, Charlotte.
Hello.
Hi,
guys.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You look great. I'm loving this dress. Is it a dress top? What's the sitch?
Well, it's a dress. And then this morning in the post came this, like, I don't know, it's sort of like a jewellery boob cage.
I love it.
I like it too. So I thought, I'll just put that on because it's a Wednesday. So, yeah.
It's a Wednesday. Why not? Good
why
reason.
Not? Calls for it. And I would like to say that I've lost track as a performer how many times somebody's asked me, how do you want to be introduced? And from now on, I'm going to show them the video of you, Will, doing that introduction. And that's how I want to be introduced. It was epic. Thank you very much.
So you've teased us there that you are a performer. Could you please tell our viewers and listeners what kind of a performer thou art ist?
Thou art ist. Thou art ist. So I've had a bit of a kind of Batman life as an adult. By day, I've worked in schools. I've been a teacher and I've been a tutor, and now I'm a pastoral manager, which means that I sit and listen to people cry quite a lot and cheer them up in general. But by night, I've been a burlesque performer for 14 years. a while. And then in the last 3 years, I've sort of moved from that more to primping costumes. So I basically stick stuff to shit and make it shiny. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing now.
I will say, Charlotte, that does sound wonderful, but apart from the sticking stuff to costumes, that couldn't be further from what Batman is.
Well, yeah, no, burlesque Batman then.
Oh, wow, Batman and burlesque.
Have you ever seen anybody do a Batman routine in a burlesque show?
I have made a costume for a Batman routine. She wanted yellow nipple tassels, so I have. It happens. There's a burlesque act for everything, you guys. There's Disney burlesque, there's Harry Potter burlesque. You name it, it's out there.
It's so exciting. And the place that you're telling us about today is sort of connected to burlesque, isn't it? Tell us about the place, the day out that you're telling us about.
I know about Soho. I know about cabaret in Soho. So I thought there's kind of been 3 main places in my performing career that have been real kind of nostalgic places with a load of history in Soho. One is the Raymond Review Bar, which is now the Box. One is Madame Jojo's, which is sadly RIP, closed at the moment. And one is Café de Paris, which has probably got the longest and most interesting history, which is just next to Leicester Square. So that's what I thought I would concentrate on today, Café de Paris.
So it's got a long history. How old are we talking?
We're talking, I think it was 1924.
Bloody.
Oh, wow.
Opened, and it was actually still before that. It was a restaurant, so it was still doing tea dances, and it's had a big dance floor in the middle of it. So the dance has been kind of key to the venue's history, really. But in 1924, it opened as Café de Paris, and has kept going strong for most of that time, with a few gaps in the middle.
To be fair, if it's 1924, you have got World War II to contend with. So fair enough. Have a few years off.
It's a few years off.
Defeat the Third Reich. Whack on some pasties.
Then we'll come back. Yeah. So 1924, I've made some notes because I thought I won't remember the years. I remembered the rest, but not the years. 1924 opened on Coventry Street, which is sort of around the corner from the big theatre that does Mamma Mia forever and ever.
Yeah.
And the Comedy Store and places, other places you might know.
I don't know where that is. They've not booked me for years.
Cheers. Maybe they should. And so this is, since I started in cabaret, people have always spun this line to you, and I've discovered today it's a complete lie. So people have always said, oh yeah, the famous thing about Café de Paris is modeled on the Titanic's ballroom, and that it's got 2 big sweeping curved staircases in the middle of it, which is in the film Titanic, it's the bit by the clock, where
sure.
Rose and Jack had that. So it does look like that, but everyone's just been casually throwing that fact around, and I just accepted it for about 14 years, because actually based on a different boat, which was the Lusitania.
That was the sister ship of the Titanic. That's fine. It's Titanic.
It's close enough.
Aware, isn't it?
Titanic adjacent.
Titanic adjacent.
Well, right now, at the bottom of the sea, they're both sunk.
It also got sunk, So it was based on like a venue inside it called the Palm Court, which is why it's all sort of green and blue. Yeah, so that
and
was
the
its kind of
staircase
gimmick.
is like part of the dances then? Are they like you come down the stairs being
fancy? It's such a nice venue. It's so different to anywhere else I've ever performed. You go into the front and it's just a little door with gold frames around it, and you wouldn't have a clue that it's really there if you didn't know. And you go down some stairs, and then it sort of shoots you out onto a mezzanine. So you come in at the top level rather than the floor, and you have to walk down the 2 curved staircases. Very cool. So even as a guest, you get to sort of have a descending moment. And it's a big sort of round dance floor where they put cabaret seating out, and then there's booths all around the edge, big pillars everywhere, and a huge chandelier in the middle. So it's beautiful.
Can I ask you a question about cabaret as a whole before we get into Café de Paris? So I use the word cabaret 3 or 4 times a week. but I couldn't define what cabaret is. So for people that don't know what cabaret is, how would you define that kind of entertainment?
Oh, I wish I had like one line that would sum it up neatly. But if you've been to a cabaret show, you'll know it can be anything. It's sort of, well, it's a big mixture, and a lot of it's quite satirical, political, subversive, or the other side you've got kind of like fluffy escapist entertainment, and it can be anything in that spectrum really. But you're talking as a whole like a mixed variety show. The closest thing that you may have seen is maybe the Royal Variety Show on TV. So you might have some comics, some musical comedies, some singers, you might have some dancers in there, some burlesque, some circus, and usually the kind of more traditional format of a show is a review show. So it would be unrelated acts. There wouldn't necessarily be a storyline that ties them together. Some shows will have a theme tenuously that ties it together, but quite often it will be sort of standalone 4 or 5 acts in a half, and then an interval, and then another half where they'll do a second act in a slightly different way. But Café de Paris is very typical of that and has always had that, well, quite often had that format. So you can see a bit of anything really. I've seen a man fit his whole body through a tennis racket.
So it opened in 1924, and it's nearly 100 years old now. And you say it's been running pretty successfully, but I did a tiny bit of research just so that I vaguely knew what we were talking about. It had one quite big stoppage, didn't it?
Quite an issue, yeah. So Café de Paris' history has sort of had 4 big kind of resurgences as it's changed hands between different people. So that first bit in the 20s was very much Charleston Jazz Age era. So if you've seen Great Gatsby, the film, imagine that. And it was made really popular in the first place because Edward and Margaret of our royal family used to frequent there quite a lot, and it got a reputation for being quite elite. And in that time, quite a famous silent movie actress who'd go on to be in films, Louise Brooks, who made that haircut popular in the 20s.
Cool.
Yeah, the bob.
Yeah.
She was one of the first people to introduce the Charleston in that venue, and she was in the show, so people would come and see her and see the Charleston for the first time. And that made that venue really quite famous.
That's so cool.
And then,
as a Charlotte knows me fairly well, so you know how much of a not a dancer I am.
Yeah.
Which one is the Charleston?
Wait, can I do it with my fingers?
Yeah, you can.
So these are your knees, and they're doing that, and then your hands are going bum 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 bum.
Okay, right. With the ankles that go like that, you know. And then there's a lot of like knees. Exactly like that. Will.
I'm quite impressed with that actually.
Yeah. So she did that, and then it got really famous.
Okay.
So it was like ticking along really nicely, doing really well. It was like the place to be seen. All the hot ladies went there. And then
all the what? Sorry,
the hot ladies.
Oh, the hot ladies went there. Great.
Hot ladies.
I guess you'd have picked what time to come in so that you got there just as enough people were already in there. So when you made your entrance down the stairs, like people were looking at you.
It was like the Studio 54 of 1920, whatever. And then the Second World War, I think, began. And
nightmare.
Yeah, nightmare, total nightmare. And they completely blagged their way into staying open by saying, "Oh, there's 4 floors above us, so we're underground, so it's safe." So they just kept partying. But then the 4 floors had 2 bombs, and then the 4 floors went in the middle of the show.
Oh, I didn't realize it was actually in a show.
Yeah, it was in a show. So it was it went through, apparently, different places saying different things, but I'm going to go with what the National Archives say because I feel like that's better than Wikipedia.
it's 6 of 1. It's fine
for that. So apparently, I went down the ventilation shaft of the cinema that was above the Rialto cinema, and landed directly in front of the stage, which is in the middle of the 2 little staircases. There's the stage, and then there's all the people sitting in front. And one went off and one didn't, and it caused all the shrapnel kind of falling in on the venue itself. and lots of people died, including the performers. So then even on the National Archive website, it has, I'm geeking now, tell me if this gets boring, but it had like a map of the architectural design of the floor, and then it had big like grim red crosses of where everybody died.
No.
And there was like this massive red cross in exactly the position that I quite often used to perform in, front left. Oh no, oh dear.
Oh, that's so tragic.
Yeah,
I've had gigs like that. Just one big red cross by the microphone.
Well, that's going to close you down, really, isn't it? That's going to shut you for a bit.
Yeah.
Because you think, like, in theory, like, yeah, stay open a bit. In my head now, I'm like watching Mrs. Henderson Presents, and it's kind of like that in my imaginings.
Is this now? There's a film with Will Young.
Yeah,
Mrs. Henderson Presents.
Yeah.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
Is that's based on this bombing? Because they get bombed in World War II. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, so they're right round the corner. So the Windmill is round one of the back streets of Piccadilly Circus, and that was the same deal. They had a tagline of we never close, and they kept performing all the way through the war. And in the map of where the bombs were going off in that 1 week, there was the one on Café de Paris, there was one right in the middle of Piccadilly Circus, and then there were 3 sort of all the way around the edge of the National Gallery, and they didn't quite manage to get the National Gallery. So it was quite heavily bombed area. Yeah.
Do you reckon all the bombs are falling, going, bloody hell, there's loads of bombs around here. It's like on? Piccadilly Circus.
Oh.
Hello.
It's us.
Maybe stop learning about the Café de Paris for 2 blooming minutes and listen to your best friends, us.
And look, in the same clothes, because we're recording this advert the same day as the interview, like cool dudes. Please become our Patreon subscriber.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what that's
what this is.
All of these adverts are us hiding up the fact that, listen, we love doing this and we'd like more patrons, and we hide it. And today the sun's been out, we've had a drink.
Yeah.
Give us your cash, nerds. Bye.
Thing is, every week we make an episode of Years and Years, and we really like it, and every week we have the same conversation where we go, should we just put this one out for free for everyone, because basically we want everyone to hear it, but also we like paying mortgages and rent, so
and phone bills.
And phone bills. If you become a patron, then everybody gets to hear it and we get money, which is the best of both worlds. So there's something to think about.
We've really gone for the Oasis brand of advertisement there. We make nice drinks. You've got money. Let's sort it out. But people, this is not a weird email. We have a thank you.
We do. You just said this is not a weird email.
Sorry, I was thinking about emails in the past. Carry on.
We do have a thank you. We want to say a big thank you to Kate Johnson, who was already our patron, but has doubled their patron pledge. And we're so grateful. Thank you very much for doing that. It means the world to us to know that you enjoy our stuff to the tune of the tune.
And just quickly before we go back, if you can't afford to be a patron, that's absolutely fine. This stuff will stay free. If you can afford and don't do it, you're a real piece of work.
Bye. So it shuts after it's bombed.
Yep,
when does it reopen again after that?
48.
Okay, so pretty quick after the
pretty
war
quick.
then.
And then it has a mega glamorous era.
Yeah,
where you have like everybody, because this is now like golden age of cinema and MGM musicals. So you've got like Sinatra, Grace Kelly, you've got Judy Garland, like everybody turning up and having a great time, and it just becomes like the place to be seen at that point. Yeah.
And was it the sort of place that you had to have an invite for, or could anybody go there if they could pay for a ticket, or like how did that work?
It used to be quite elite. Like that first bit, the 20s was, you know, when royalty were going there.
Yeah.
And then when it hit World War II, they changed the policy, so they kind of let in more of us commoners, and it was a fiver to get in.
Speak for yourself. Oh, somebody there with Edward VII.
They'd never have let me in otherwise.
I love the idea of going out for a pint and just seeing the king.
The king.
Hello.
Hiya.
Imagine seeing the king order a pint of Strongbow.
Love it.
I'd never recover.
Yeah, so that was a super glam era where everyone that was kind of anyone was there. And then it settled down a bit and had another resurgence in the 80s when you had Bowie and Tina Turner, George Michael, like all of that lot rocking up. They had a kind of new review show in there that was created by someone called Anna Pigalle, so it was all French and cool and everyone loved it, and Andy Warhol would rock up every now and then, so it was a real kind of big venue in the centre of London.
Wow, I'd never have called the 80s as being a time for like a resurgence of a burlesque type cabaret place.
Yeah,
I feel like
I suppose though Soho, like it's the obviously the gay community being around for years and years, but when they come into the fore in Soho, I don't know why, but in my mind, the cabaret world and the gay world are quite linked, and the two would rise together. Like if you look at GAYs in Soho, the Admiral Duncan. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that 80s bit is what kind of maybe kept it going, because a lot of things that burlesque in general died a bit of a death when you got nude magazines and, you know, video going on.
What are these?
Like when you're going into kind of porn era, and then burlesque became a bit tame, and then strip clubs and table dancing in the 70s and 80s became popular, and no one really sort of cared about that vintage look anymore. So, you know, people always go for the most extreme thing on offer. And only in the late 90s, really, mid 90s, did people start to want that glamour back, because you had that whole, you know, grunge era in the 90s. Sparkle and glamour again, and then all that stuff kind of comes back round, and we have Moulin Rouge, and we have Great Gatsby, and we have Dita Von Teese, and everyone's got a renewed interest in something that feels like very, you know, yesteryear.
It's different. If you could visit Café de Paris in a 2-year period in history, when would you go? Would you go for like the original heyday, or the 50s heyday, or the 80s heyday? Like, what if you could visit a time where you haven't been able to? When would you go?
I think for me and my kind of personal taste, I'd want to go in the 50s. Like, everyone is out for a party, maybe 51 or so. All those big Hollywood musical performers are the ones that, the first thing that I saw that made me want to go into show business in the first place. So we had all the musicals that were popular when I was a kid, like Grease and, you know, those things that we had on video. But then I discovered, you know, my mum introduced me to all those old Judy Garland ones with the amazing costumes and huge production numbers, and that really made me go, well, what's there like that? Can I do that? I want to do that for a job. And there wasn't that much going on. So we made it. We made our own versions of it. And I've been in kind of a girl band version of a burlesque troupe ever since.
When you're designing or devising a burlesque piece, like, you said there are some classic moves. Yeah. Is there a classic structure to a burlesque piece that you follow, or is it very much do what you want?
The kind of overall thing is do what you want. There aren't really any rules. If you want to do a more traditional act, there are codified stuff that you can follow. So there's particular movements that if you went to a burlesque class, they might teach you and link together to make a sequence or a routine. And there's a few acts that are recognized, like there's a traditional act where you'd have perhaps a gown and you'd have a big boa, like a feather boa, And you might have then a corset and then underwear as well, and stockings that you take off while sitting on a chair. And that's quite a classic striptease with bump and grind type movements, shimmying
Bump
and all of that.
Grind type movements.
Yeah, it's all in the hips. So that's sort of one style. And then there's the fan dance. You might have seen big feather fans. They use them a lot in Strictly Come Dancing these days. Huge fans that cover your body, and you would reveal and hide as you go through the act, slowly revealing more bits and pieces. And
that's a technical term for nips.
Well, I've I don't want to brag. I've seen bits and pieces.
You've seen bits and pieces. I brought you some bits and pieces. This is, if you wanted to give them a go when you come down, we'll go out and you can wear these.
So those are pasties, are they?
Yeah, they are.
And would you always leave those on? How come the nips never get shown? Is that like a legal thing?
It's a legal thing. So you have to have a particular license to show or strip. So at one point in Camden, there was a point in history in which, in my lifetime, where you could be that naked. You could have pasties or tassels on and a thong and walk around and be that naked, but you weren't allowed to take something off. So you could walk around, but you couldn't take a glove off. So it was very strange. But then on the other side to that, Westminster Council kind of come and go with their rules, and I have full on stripped in the middle of Leicester Square for Pride, and we're going, you know what we do, right? And they're like, yeah, just go for it. There's lots of children. Yeah, don't worry about it. So, I think it depends where you're performing as to what they'll let you do. But Madame Jojo's had a full nudity license, which was great fun.
I was laughing at Come and Go, and I'm very sorry.
Nice. It's all right. That's the level.
What about male burlesque? Because obviously, like, you think burlesque girls, and you think, the sort of 50s-ish styling. What's male burlesque like?
Well, it can be anything. So you have like really hot circus boys who are totally ripped, and I've seen those kind of guys do amazing aerial numbers where they
don't laugh at me, please, Charlotte.
Next career, Will.
It's really bad for my. I was doing a joke, but don't enjoy it.
What was it? Oh, so they might. I've seen them do acts in giant martini glasses full of water, where they'll do the glamorous thing and get in that, splash around. And so it's very, Magic Mike kind of glamorous side. Oh, yeah. And then there's a sort of more parody camp side to it as well. But it's the same as female burlesque. It's anything goes, however you want to express yourself.
Do they still have to have their nips covered up? Do you get boy pasties, or are boys allowed nips out?
I know, Laura, I'm all on the side of free the nipples. It's still so backwards. Yeah, we can't, they can.
I nearly asked the most stupid question then. I nearly said, but why would someone want a male to do a strip? Because females look nicer than males, but I very much realise that's my own sexuality coming through there. And there are an entire spectrum of people that aren't me.
Whoa! That might be the most growth a straight white male has ever done on a podcast.
Can I ask one super quick question before the quiz about Primp My Costume?
So
I've seen some of the costumes you've done. I've been on your Etsy. I've seen the things that Laura has worn and talked about. As someone who I think quite flamboyant internally, I dress very boring.
Okay.
Can you give me just the fastest advice for how to dress fabulously?
Fabulously. Accents in your outfit, I think, is finding like little bits that tying in some colour somewhere, like a little extra thing. So if you were wearing like a blazer over something, like on stage, having a little like pocket square or like a inside lining of something that matched something else would be really great. And having just sometimes like an extra layer can make a really big difference. So having a smarter kind of overshirt that is open and has a casual t-shirt underneath can really make a difference as well. An interesting belt, an interesting watch, interesting socks, those kind of things.
I think at the first National Treasures live show, Laura, I'm going to get Charlotte to dress me head to toe, and I'm going to wear a tiara.
Oh, screw it. Yeah, why not?
You should. Amazing.
Would it surprise you to know that I have a tiara in my attic?
It would surprise me to that anyone has an attic, because I live in a very small flat, and the idea of more space makes me feel sick.
3 weeks, Will Duggan.
Brighton.
3 weeks. Right, we've asked you enough questions now. It's time for you to grill us in the section of the show that we like to call the arguing section.
Oh, great. Okay, let's cause a ruckus.
Yes.
Okay, so some questions for you. This first one's a memory test question.
Okay.
Now, before you ask it, Laura, are we
Yeah.
doing buzzers or hand up or shout out?
I'm gonna go, ooh, if I know.
And are we going to respect the ooh?
Yes, we'll let Charlotte pick who got first.
What noise are you making, Will?
I'm going to say ooh as well, but in a deeper voice.
Can I have an example?
Ooh.
Yeah, fine. Okay. So, which 2 members of the royal family were often spotted? Oh, that was exactly the same time.
Let's do one each.
Yeah, do one each. Okay.
Edward.
Yep.
And Margaret.
Correct. Well done. Pew, pew, pew. 1 point each. Right. Question 2. I don't know if we actually said the exact year, so this might be a guess one. The Café de Paris was bombed in World War II.
We all know that was me.
Will.
1941.
Yeah. Well done. Question 3. A nightclub has purchased the venue to open in the future Café de Paris. Which country is that nightclub, Laura?
Ibiza.
Yeah. Careful.
Spain.
I wasn't going to answer, but I was being fair, Laura. I was like,
Okay,
Leo
rules.
nightclub?
Yeah, Leo nightclub, correct. Okay, this final question is sort of a left field answer. So the in Café de Paris, there's a very unusual dressing room, and it is padded and it is pink all the way around the ceiling and the walls. Whoever gives me the most amusing answer to this question will get this winning point. What is our nickname for this dressing room? Laura.
Is it the vagina room?
Oh, it's close. It's the womb room.
Oh, it's good.
The vagina room is good.
For what it's worth, I was going to say Pussy Palace.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Normally at this
welcome.
point we'd say if people have had their appetite whetted for a bit of Café de Paris, where can they find burlesque and stuff in popular culture? But I feel like we've done that as we've gone along.
We have.
Just remind us of some of the things you mentioned. So we have Mrs. Henderson Presents. What else did you mention?
What
Kinky
else did I
Boots?
mention? Kinky Boots. That's there's a really great film called The Look of Love, which is a great history of Soho, which has got Steve Coogan in it, and loads of the funny mixtures are in it as random showgirls in the background. But it's based on the history of Paul Raymond, who owns basically all of Soho, who died recently, and it shows basically the evolution of Soho. And his granddaughter, one of them who inherited it all, was at one point, I think 2013, she was richer than the Queen, apparently, according to Tatler. So there's a lot of money in that family. So that's a really good film, The Look of Love, to explore the history of Soho. Definitely.
Can I ask a slightly variated question on where would people see it? It's, can you explain just quickly, why should people go and see burlesque?
Because there's a reason why you don't see much of it like live shows on TV. It's best experienced in an intimate venue, preferably a supper club, where you can sit, drink, eat. The performers can come and sit in your lap or like handstand in your face and, fall down from the ceiling on silks right in front of you, and you might get champagne poured all over. It's best in an intimate environment. It's where it comes alive.
Obviously, you can't speak for all clubs, but when it comes to accessibility, how is your average supper club for people who have issue with mobility or anything really? Like, are they accessible places by and large, or is it very much a case-by-case basis?
In terms of for audience members?
For audience members. To say a
So-
wheelchair user wanting to come into Madame Jojo's or Café de Paris, are provisions there for people?
Everywhere I've performed in terms of just getting in touch beforehand and ringing them beforehand and just letting them know the situation, adjustments would be made, and it would be made possible for you to be able to access the show just like everybody else. Because what's on stage out there is, we're pushing our message of everyone's invited. Look at all these weirdos on the stage. Like, come and have a good time and share it with us, and we don't mind who you are or what your story is. Everyone's totally welcome.
Fantastic. That is the best answer.
What do I win?
Thank you so much for joining us. This was Charlotte from Print My Costume. Charlotte, people who have liked you and found you interesting and want to hear more, where can people find you on the internet?
On the internet? Oh goodness, I'm everywhere. So on all your average socials, I am at Primp My Costume. And my Instagram's quite a good launch pad to start with. If you click the link in the bio, it's got the list of all the other places you can find me, like my Etsy store, which is Print My Costume, and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and everywhere. Go and have a look at my stuff. If you want to contact me about anything that you would like primped and made sparkly, I do everything from water bottles to gifts, to anything you want. You name it, I can primp it. Just to send me a message, I'll see what I can do. I'm always up for a challenge.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us, Charlotte. It has been an absolute treat. And I can't wait to get a denim jacket primped.
Hell yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And there we have it, Laura. Charlotte from Print My Costume.
You're going to be so shiny when you move to Brighton.
Oh my God. The thing is, I have genuinely wanted... like a denim jacket with, and I'm not going to get this, but like a gold thread tiger on the back. But I think Charlotte and I can find a compromise.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you like us, Laura, where can people find us?
They can find us at Treasures Pod on Instagram and Twitter.
Lovely.
And it's nationaltreasurespodcast@gmail.com for the email to just talk to us.
How lovely.
We are on patreon.com/national treasures. If
We
you
are.
would like to listen to Years and Years, which is our weekly podcast where every episode we take a year from history and learn about it.
And in the next 3 weeks from date of recording, not date of it being released, you can find us on the beach at Brighton, eating fish and chips and saying, we both live here. Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Just quickly, I hadn't mentioned earlier, I really like your glasses. Bye!
Right?